Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Wow, we've had so many follows overnight. That is crazy. Oh, and who's this? One second, I want to check on something. Something even more interesting. Looks like last night we actually had, about 2 hours ago, we were shouted out by Vicus. That's odd. Weird. Okay. So excited I've caught my first stream. Good morning. Good morning. Izio, or how do I say your name? As always, our morning streams are a little bit more relaxed, chill, and then our evening streams are going to be the ones that are more energetic. So if you're more into the chaos, louder streams, that'll be the evening one. And if you like this more chill atmosphere, then this will definitely be your preferred stream. Good morning, moist mammy. Let me see. First off, thank you, Echo, for being first. Thank you, Croco, for being second. And Brookie, thank you for being third. And of course, hellos to everybody who checked in. So hello, Echo. And Nap Time, and Croco. And hello, Pink, and Bones, and Izio. And hello, After Dinner Mindy. And hello, Pinky. I do appreciate you all checking in. And thank you for the head pats. I forgot that's going to lag me out for a second here. Well, welcome for your first time. It is 3:48 a.m. for me. And this is around when I wake up before work. There will not be an evening stream today, but usually there will be an evening stream around 4 p.m. MST. Or, for you on the Pacific Coast, 3 p.m. MST. Alright. It's just right before my work. It's not too bad. I like doing these two streams because we have one where I can have low energy and just be chill. While those in the evening, I can be a little bit more energetic. Today's your Monday. Oh, I'm so sorry, Echo. Have you thought about not letting it be your Monday today? Quit your job. Never work again. Good, I'm glad. But how's everybody doing this morning? Let's see who all is here. Pig's stucco. We'll probably just do some hardcore Minecraft this morning. And thank you for the follow, Hermilla and Izio. And Angels, thank you for the follow. No winner this time, but nice try. 1 second. Apparently, I had metal alarm set right now. That would not have been the vibe I was going for. There's also a new Minecraft style game that's come out. I need to figure out what it's called, but that might become a new morning game instead. Don't play Minecraft, Moist. Get yourself some sleep. And good morning, Vanya. Hello, my lovely mod. How are you doing today? Did you sleep all right? How has it been on the other side of the world? Is it weird that most of my mods live across an ocean from me? Wait. Wait, I gotta look something up real quick. Is there any issues with the EU TwitchCon? Are there ever any issues with the EU TwitchCon? Because you never hear about all the crazy stuff that happens in the States. Hmm. Why don't I just go to the EU TwitchCon? I can meet a bunch of random cool people. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more of a thing of like, all the Americans want to meet each other, but like, I mean, if it's safer. Oh, what's up, nap time? Yeah, EU's pretty chill. Not America. You know what? Fair point. Fair point. You have a point there. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm so disappointed. I am so disappointed with how it went down this year. Thank you for the follow corruption. Mm-hmm. No. I don't know what that means in this situation. Nap time, you and your contextually emotes, and good morning, Nami-chan. Welcome to the menagerie, everyone. I should have a disclaimer for everyone who's coming from TikTok. That way they can pick their streams better. Fair enough. Morning, morning. This is our relaxed stream in the morning. Join the Discord, that's fair. Yeah, I'm thinking about changing the verification process for the Discord. For those of you who are currently in there, we have been using a third party for ID verification. But I've recently gone through Discord's own verification process. And though it does require people to be more, honest with their initial account setup, it will block anybody who is underage, which can result in, account bans of them, and any of the people in the Europe have to do ID verification anyways through Discord. I could also just be like, anyone who wants to join my stream has to pay $1, or my Discord has to pay $1 to buy a badge, because that way it proves that you have a credit card, which means that you're at least old enough to own a credit card. Which is how, I think Steam is doing it. To identity to verify, they're just like, they do a few cent purchase that they refund you. Mm-hmm. Mm. Do you have any way to doing online purchases? What is what? What is what, Pinky? Oh, why? Why did you pick that voice out of all the voices that I hate doing? You do have debit? Okay, well, I mean, that's something at least. Proves that you have to have a bank account. You have a mortgage. Alright, we have 1 minute to be stuck in this stupid voice. I hate this one. But everybody always wants to push me into it for some reason. But I lost a gamble. So now it's a permanent voice for now. Unless I can win my gambles back. I'm truly a voice actor. No, I don't know what that means. I've never voice acted in my life. Just kidding. I love voice acting. Okay, now we have our old copper and... Yeah, just wait until you see the geeky voice, which I don't know if you've been there for that one. We have one voice, it's a geek one, but I don't do it in the morning. Because to maintain the voice, I have to get a little bit more energetic and loud. This voice I can do while still being quiet. I like it that we have dogs now. The dogs, ow, that hurt. The dogs are the best. It means that we're gonna be able to fight off all the skeletons. Maybe not die so easily this time. Oh, is it still? I thought I did it. No, it might just be it hasn't refreshed yet. I did disable it. I hope it disabled. And now I can go back to normal. There we go. Oh, yeah. Well, luckily, Minecraft dogs are a little bit more well behaved. No, they're not. They keep throwing themselves off cliffs and into spikes and trying to run me off things. But unfortunately, there will not be an evening stream today. I am getting called into work to do some overtime things, so... no evening stream today unless I go way, way further. Are you napping or are you going to sleep? Both are valid, but you know. I work in IT. Fix computers and such. And how can you believe it? To waste this talent fixing computers all day. Work sucks, I know. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me home. No, 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 no. I speak German for work. I do not speak German for work. It would be interesting, though. Really? That's very interesting. What made you swap to insurance? Bye-bye, Vinky. Thank you for that, Pats. Thank you for stream checking, Teddy Bear. Gut Nacht morgen. Guten Nachtong. That's fair. Maybe I should get into insurance. Are we talking sales or something different? Good night. Thank you, thank you. Ooh, customer service. Same sort of vibes. Mm-hmm. I said Guten, not Morgan. There's a video that Pinky sent me earlier. It is of, send this to your bully if they speak German. And the guy what he does is he'll speak whatever language, but really badly. And one of the things he says is, Guten, not Tag. Which really doesn't mean anything at that point. Good, not day. Like, yeah, okay. Okay, buddy. Do you just live here now? How did you get down here? Why are you here? That's fine. You should leave a dish. Hey, Rainy Drum, thank you for the shout out. Wait, what's going on? I have to, we're gonna look in real quick to see what's going on. Shout out right back. I want to see what's going on here real quick. Of course, there's an ad. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm so hungry. You are so hungry. What does that mean? Huh. That's so interesting. Sorry, I just noticed, like, we've gotten shout outs from random streams. Seem kind of interesting. During, like, I've gotten shout outs from random streams, which are kind of interesting, and I go look at them, and yeah, it's people just streaming and vibing and hanging out. Okay, I guess it's your part of the stream too now. You're all up. Oh, that's why. Hello, Rainy Drop. I was wondering why you shouted out. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Are we communists now? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the more relaxed morning stream. My name's LuckyJene, gambler, a writer, and soon-to-be villain. And I think you're playing Dead by Daylight, is that right? Grab your umbrellas and your rain boots. Here comes the rainstorm. Let me go drop you a follow. How was Dead by Daylight? Did you win? Hello, hello. I really do appreciate the rain. And if you need to raid and run, feel free to do so. And if you want to hang out and vibe, please do so as well. Oh, Pandragon. Oh, cool. They are very, very cool. I like them. I do apologize that the morning streams are a bit more relaxed and chill, but my evening ones are significantly more energetic. Oh, you know what we can do? I have an idea. Let me give you the full experience, but we're not going to use the one sound effect. Give me just a sec. No, you're not allowed to run away. You're going to have to stay. So, I have a little thing I like to do when we have new people come by. I gotta show you a new room I made. New-ish. I guess we've had it for a little while. So, you see, I have a theory. That I really, really want to hit partner eventually, right? So my thought is, if I can just get people to stay longer, as long as they possibly can, right? And so what I like to do is I sit here, I talk, I explain this whole situation to them, and then while they're not paying attention, well, I lock them up. So, I hope you enjoy your time here. And I promise I won't shake the cage too much, just a little bit. There we go. And I hope you enjoy your time in the cage. You were ready for this, and you came anyways. Can I at least get a librarian here? I'll allow you books. Actually, today on the Tiki Talks, I am going through and giving everybody food who orders it. I'm going to be busy all day responding to every little comment. But here, you know what? Because you're nice, you all can have desserts today, okay? There. Snacks and celebration for joining in. Thank you. Thank you so much for the raid. I do truly appreciate it. I'll make sure somebody's always trapped. Yeah, you'd be surprised. Oh, come on, dog. Come out of the rain. At least go inside. Come here, sweeties. You stay there. You're living here, and I will take 2 with me on my journey. Enjoy my new friends. They are. I love the little email. They are very, very lovely. All of our amazing, amazing people here. It has been incredible getting to bring in so many new faces. You haven't had Dr. Pepper in a week? Oh, fine. You can have some Dr. Pepper. We'll allow it. For now. Thank you for the head pats. I'm raising chickens to kill to feed my dogs. Which, remember, do not feed chickens to dogs. Do not feed chickens to dogs, especially cooked chicken bones. Cooked chicken bones will splinter and can get lodged in their throat. So never feed dogs cooked chicken bones. And don't feed dogs chickens unless you're not on a farm. Alright, let's get some chickens for them. Hello, Valley. Hello, Lilies. How you doing this morning? I do think it's funny. I went to go check you out because I saw you'd raided me, Raindrops. Not raided me, you shouted me out. And now I still have the stream open, and it's just, me still on the screen. Alright, we have 2 dogs. You 2 are staying here. And the other 2 dogs are going with me. There we go. A lovely view of myself. Good morning, Ludovane. Thank you so much for the follow and welcome to the menagerie. You're now a voidling. No, of course I want to follow. I love checking out the people who want to check me out. Because, I mean, you have really good taste, so obviously I need to come see your stream. Oh, lucky. Lucky. Flowers, I'm so proud of you. Well done. I hope you can sleep a lot more than that, but that's definitely a good start. Y'all, I'm proud of you for taking care of yourselves. Y'all are doing great. Y'all are really doing so very well. Genuinely. Okay, I should actually probably prepare for this. I'm so used to going into the mines with nothing that now that I can actually bring weapons and things. Let's not do that. A good go of tea. You should get some actual water, but tea is a solid starting point. Tis leaf water. If it's hot tea, it's not going to be as good for you. Hot beverages will take a little bit more water to digest, I believe. At least that's what my mother always told me. Brand. Right. Let's get a stack of stone to go with us. Yes. Moist, I'm going to give you a very, very easy streaming schedule to remember. Thank you so very much. 3:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. MST. Unless I wake up too late. Oh, because I was making fence. And I ran out of enough fence to go around prettily. We're going to feed it to the dog. Eat my fence. Thank you for the follow, Mr. Taisho. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the morning stream. Hi, Karunia. I forgot to move this over here. Oh, you may have also noticed that I shortened the time on some of the voice redeems. I've done this so that, in the future, we can go through more voice redeems a little bit quicker. Let's make some thing. I think 2 stacks should be enough. I just zoned out. Anyways, yes, we've done it so we can go through more voice redeems quicker. That way I can throw some more stylings on you. But I've also reduced the cooldown time on the voices so they can be redeemed more often. I think that's fair. What do you all think? But how are you doing, Mr. Taisho? Skib, solid, valid. Skib maxing. Oh. As long as the poem is okay. Welcome. You do. Don't worry, though. Don't you worry. See? We have food today. Today's a good day, so I've decided to let you all celebrate and have some cake and pastries. So yes, as long as you behave yourself today, you get good food. Mm-mm-mm. And you have been granted book privileges. But I might be taking away the food, so enjoy it while you can. What was I doing? Don't pee in the corner. Why are you peeing in the corner? Naughty. Don't do that. Oh, I need some. 1 second. I may have spilled a drink. 1 second. There we go. All better. I'm legally required to fail at least once a day, so there's my failing for the day. Why are you down here? Ooh, I actually need you to die, but still need you. No, I fail a lot more than once a day. I'm just legally required to fail at least once a day. This feels rude, but we need to do this. Dogs, dogs, dogs. I have no arrows. Do not kill the dogs. Do not kill the dogs. No, no, no. Dogs, stop pushing away. Dogs, stop pushing away. Let them come forward. There we go. Oh, that was almost bad. There we go, though. I would have cried. I would have cried. Did you want to play the word game, chums? Chubby, Mr. Croco, did you want to play the word game? Morning, Barry and Barissa. How you doing this morning? Breaking things is a talent. Yeah, it is, actually. And that's a valid use of the word talent. Have I ever told you all that I don't like the word talent? Except when used the way, stop getting in my bed. Instead of used the way that it was just used. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, wait a second. Okay. So, the reason why I don't like the word talent, because talent requires you to have something naturally. A talent is something that just occurs for most people. Exactly, and most things that are labeled talents are in fact not talents, but skills that have been trained. Even if you start at a young age, what are you sorry for? Even if you start at a young age, you still spend the time learning it, right? And so saying something's a talent, like, oh, you have a talent for drawing, is really discrediting the work somebody has put into something to learn it. Okay, here, we're going to read a little poetry. Let's see, is this the right one? Nope, that's the car. That's my no body. That's my wrong color. Where did my book go? It's here somewhere. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I gotta find my book. Give me just a second while I find the book. It's been a while since I've needed to redeem it. I guess we'll rebind the keys. Also, my hands are gonna be sticky. Most people don't, and talent really doesn't exist that often. Most people, I think, don't actually have talent because, well, talents really aren't real. Right. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, there it is. Hmm. Also, where's the eye shine? I'm gonna remove the eye shine because I don't want that. Mm. Oh no, I've lost that too. That's crazy. There it is. Yeah. And that was the wrong button. Oh well. Don't worry about the kink. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Time for the poetry. Written by Flowers here. Inside my mind is a labyrinth. Inside my mind none shall ever understand. Inside my mind where sadness is grief, happiness becomes euphoria. Inside my mind anchors deep rage deep within. Inside my thoughts prepare for war, I wage only against myself. Every day is a battle, and I don't know if I'm winning or losing. Everything is something new, something strange, and yet I still see the stars in the night sky. I still reach for the light, holding my hand out and screaming for help. Nobody can help, though, for they fight their own wars. I stand and brush myself off because I fight for others. They keep me alive. Inside my mind, why I love too much, carry a piece of everyone around me. I take their strength and I battle on. You'll never understand what's inside my mind, so you'll never understand what's going on inside yours. But to me, my battle each day, I somehow become stronger and weaker. What's inside my mind, demons I fight on the daily that rage inside me. Grab my hand, I'll steady you. And while we may not fight each other's demons, I'll stand by you. While you're inside my mind and I'm in mine. I'll choose to love you every day, even from afar. You always have someone cheering you on, inside your mind. Just remember me is all I ask. While you battle yours, I too battle mine. I like that. I like the repetition. Very good. You could really use a wish right now. Very fair. Oh, good. Keep it up. I may eventually do some writing workshops. And we are going to be doing our very own streamer NaNoWriMo, where I'll be trying to allow everybody to write a novel in a month. Right now, I'm still looking for streamers who I can partner with on it. We'll see how that goes, though. I'm very ADHD, but having done NaNoWriMo in the past made it a lot easier for me to finally actually write a story in a book. Right. Keep the water. Don't need this, don't need that. Maybe shears, because I think it'll help. The axe for fighting things, pickaxe for getting around, bread for food. We don't need the ink. Could need that. Definitely will need torches. Keep 2 stacks, don't need this. Keep that just in case. We do have a thing built. Alright, there's our emergency bag. And thank you for checking in. Found you better at reading than writing. I like that. How are you doing today, Vanya? You doing alright? That's my buddy. Okay, now I need to find out where did I put my feathers. You're not doing okay? I'm sorry to hear that. What am I looking for? I don't have any flint. That's what I should make. I should make a shovel. My desk is so sticky right now. Enjoy your adulting time. Thank you for coming by. Do truly appreciate it. So, I spilled a drink on my desk, but also yesterday when I was trying to make my little energy drink, I might have put some of the powder on my desk, and so the liquid from my desk spill has now liquefied the energy drink powder, and so I also have energy drink powder. On my desk. It does need a good wipe down. Well, it's not on my desk, it's on my mouse pad. So honestly, I just really, really need to wash the mouse pad today. I'll probably do that. Not the first time it's happened, not the last. Ooh, hello. Dog, 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 dog. Ooh. Why do my dogs jump? Why do they jump? I guarantee nothing. Oh, Pinky, they're really good friends, is why. Hmm. Hmm. Not the skeleton threatening the dog, and the dog immediately going in for the kill. Mm. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that redeemed? Did not see it. I'm such a good doggy. Where's there water here? Where'd the water come from? What in the heck? What's going on? I think a dog just died. I think both the dogs died. Because they jumped to their death. I will never rely on the dogs again. Oh, there we... Did you see? Because I need them to keep me alive. Yeah, did you see that? The dog is just staring off into nothing. There you are. All right. Oh, they're alive. They just gone off on their own and were just hanging out for some reason. All right, there we are. A lot better. All right, I'm relaxed now. I'm here. We're safe. You want me to feed you? I don't know if I can do that, Barry. I don't know. Give me one good reason I should. I mean, I'm feeding some people. Anybody who comments on the most recent TikTok, that is. Oh, I made one dog sit. Oops. Get him, puppy. Get him. Vanya, I will feed you. I will always feed you. I have to keep the mods healthy. It's a legal requirement. They formed a union. Wait, where is this water coming from? Wait, is this all water? Oh. That's what was going on. Okay. I understand it now. you're trying to steal my mods. How dare you? Don't jump in the lava. Don't jump in the lava. Don't jump in the lava. Dog, what are you doing? Welcome back. Welcome back. Dog, in the water. In the water. Why are the dogs insane? Why are the dogs... Fox! No, no, no. No, no, no. No, no. Don't run back. Chat. Why? Why? Did you see the part where the puppy ran back into the lava? Wow. I'm never taking dogs with me anywhere ever again. We're just gonna get better armor. I was hoping they'd help me survive, which they have, but I'll never again. Bring them down here with me. Feed the last one? Well, I will once. Come here, dog. Yep. There's a Discord. The Discord currently has ID verification that may be going away in the future. So just a heads up, if you're not comfortable using it yet, please wait. This is hardcore, yes. And that is why I took the dogs with me. It had been hoped that, they would help when I get surrounded. I'm not a masochist, I just don't like things without challenge. And infinite respawn is just not challenging. Mm-hmm. Play Monster Hunter. Not for my morning streams. How would that be chill? You got so lucky. I'm gonna name you Vanya too. Cause that was insane, Pop. What were you doing? They teleport when they get a certain distance from you. Actually, no, you're not Vanya 2, because if you're Vanya 2, something bad might happen to you down here. I need Vanya 2 to survive, so you're not allowed to be Vanya 2. Mm-hmm. Vanya 2, I need to protect you. I need to protect Vanya 2. It can only be Vanya 2 after we leave here. Because you don't have survival instinct? I have faith in you. That's why I don't believe this dog would be you, you know? This dog I have no faith in. Mhm. It does. Why are you feeling angry? Get yourself some food. Food's very important. Goofy dogs. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Oh, I'm just trying to get materials right now. I have no iron. Eventually we'll build an auto smelter and then I'll finish off my little house. My little hobbit hole. But right now I'm just tired of not having iron. Probably get some good armor so I can survive. What's ironic? Mm. I kind of want to always keep a dog. Maybe we'll get dog armor. I just need to figure out how to make dog armor. Anyone know how to make dog armor by chance? Or can I not make it? I kill turtle. I killed. Oh. I see. I see. Oh, wait, so I can kill armadillos instead? Okay, perfect. I'll just take armadillos. Armadillos are fine. But turtle, no. I guess armadillos are just land turtles, aren't they? I'll stay hydrated as best I can. I appreciate it. Yes, I know turtles are on the land too. I just thought about that. Are turtles amphibians or reptiles? Disappointing. I wish turtles were amphibians. My hand is so sicky. Turpin, 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 turpin. Gib, iron, yes. Actually, oh, because you're such a good little turtle. Armadillos are the mammals of turtles. Turtles aren't mammals. They have eggs. You're a trash panda? Valid, valid. Where's Jim's? I don't know where Gibbles is. Jibberoni, Jibbediah, Jibbalicious, Jibby Jibby Jibbies. Getting jibby with it. Hello, Snowy. How you doing? Okay, I'm always keeping one dog with me because watching the skeletons run is the greatest thing in the entire world. Makes me so happy. I only have a dog. I'm doing great. Vanya, I'm adding you to lore as a raccoon turtle. I'm adding you to lore as a raccoon turtle. I do know your lore, that you are either the moon or live on the moon. Oh, do you have new lore or more lore? Please, I would love to. I'd love to hear more about it. But I'm adding you to my lore as a raccoon turtle. Oh, yes. Well, so we're going to have a 2.0 model that I'm having custom made currently. Turtles K diseases. Poor turtles. You're not a disease in my life. You are a blessing. All my mods are. Remember, you pulled me out of depression. So I do truly appreciate you. Everybody likes Vanya. Vanya's the best. I got lucky having Vanya. I will take brain rot over depression. It was worth it. No, I'd rather take brain rot off for the way I was. Oh, armadillos carry diseases. I heard that they have the one where your body parts fall off. You scared me, Vanya. I'm terrified now. What are the ones where the body parts fall off? Leprosy. Armadillos have leprosy. And there's a large amount of cases of people getting leprosy from armadillos. I'd like you to take a moment and think about how would you get leprosy from an armadillo? There's a significantly higher case than there should be to get leprosy from an armadillo. The hand's so sticky. Sticky hand. I put down a torch instead of shielding. Well, new world. Is raccoon 1C or 2Cs? Thank you. Seed is turtle. I have flour. I think I have frozen bananas. I could thaw out the frozen bananas and make banana bread. Shit, we're living underground. Don't punch my nans. Good night, Barry. Sleep well. No, we won't live underground. Mm-hmm. Door of the Peak mod. I cannot wait when I end stream and just watch this. I am so going to watch this after stream. Are there fall allergies? Is that a thing? Is that what I'm... Hello, Vanya. Who's a good Vanya? Do you want to watch me eat watermelon? Mm-hmm. Valid. What are we talking about, Vanya? I totally didn't eat watermelon in front of you. Just tonight. What the heck? They should make flat, like, on the ground, portals. I think they'd be cooler that way. Give me your stuff. Give me your stuff. Do you have stuff? No stuff. I want flat portal. Give me flat portal. You're gonna eat me as repentance? Why do you look sketchy? You're gonna eat me as repentance? Repentance for what? What could you possibly repent by eating me? Explain. Sins valid. Sins against the Father. We could do a pronoun check, but a little bit. Daddy. Sorry. Why did I do that? Are you kidding me? Nobody has stuff. How am I supposed to rob you if you don't have stuff? None of you have things. Capitalism has failed you. You disappoint me. One, two, three. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I need a lot more than that. Hi, Vanya. Do you want watermelon? Oh, you can't eat it because you're a turtle? That's true. Refused. I'm gonna make these turtles live forever. I'll put them all in boats and they will never die. Funny. Mushroom Island. This world is beautiful. Okay, I'm glad we didn't go underground. I'm gonna bring the mushroom back here. I'm gonna lock it in a cage. Yes. Get some plans. Stop to your planning. Canceling me for locking you in a cage? Oh, an armadillo. Hi, Gibbons. Just watch the turtle slowly approach the lattice and then move it back. Live in infinite hell, turtle. Sorry. I would not do that to a turtle, actually. chat, I'm gonna go into the wild and strap turtles to skateboards so that every turtle can go fast. And then I'm gonna give them little knives. And we're gonna see what happens when you give a turtle a knife and a skateboard. I've taken away its two biggest weaknesses. Instead of being all defense, now it's multiple offense and defense. And it's got the speed of a skateboard. Will turtles become the alpha predator if I give them a knife and a skateboard? We're about to find out. And that's only for the top tier. If a turtle survives a year, it gets upgraded. We keep upgrading its arsenal once it gets enough kills. Oh, I do that with anything that's too long. Any of the longer stuff I read first, Chrissy. Now we take a tourist out for an all-you-can-eat buffet. We are lagging hardcore. What is going on? Have I made too many worlds? Oh, it's because I'm watching my stream. Note to Gene. Do not watch your own stream. Considering making turtles into a video game where as they get more kills, we upgrade their arsenal. Thank you for the bed. Hello, hello, Rise. Morning, Lucy. Is that true? Chrissy. Murdered hurts? Exactly, exactly. Where am I going? What am I doing? Frog. All the time, yes. Do you want the watermelon? Would you like the watermelon? Oh, it's for Cult of the Lamb. Well, I need to make sure Pinky stays alive. They told me a funny joke today. Okay, well. I think we're gonna have stream come to an end here. I'm tired of being sticky. So I might be ending stream just a little bit early. Yeah, I don't want to be sticky anymore. It's the worst. Yeah, so I spilled shoju on my desk earlier this morning. We might stay. I might just do just chatting for a little while. Let's do just chatting for a little while then. I spilled shoju on my desk. And yesterday I spilled G Fuel powder on my desk. And the G Fuel powder then no poem right now. The G Fuel powder absorbed the shoju. And now my mouse pad, my giant desk-sized mouse pad, is very sticky. And so I've just been slowly making my hand more and more sticky. And it's not been very pleasant. I don't want to be sticky anymore, chat. I want to be clean. That's all I want right now. That was also a different time, so if you do want to be careful and not say anything too bad, I do appreciate it. Morning, Kinky Mint. How are you doing today? Mm. Oh, yeah, no, I'm just going to throw it in the washing machine. It works fine. I've done it a few times now. Mm. Please do not. I do not want that. I forgot to loop my songs today. There we go. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be so busy today. Let's see how many comments I need to respond to so far. Oh, you're always in jail. I just haven't brought you there. Oh no. Oh no. So I'm going to be responding to every single comment that is made on my post on TikTok today. And I said it for 24 hours. I'll respond to every comment because I'm just giving them approval whether their food order has been approved or not. Would you like to know how many comments we're at? 493. 493. How dare you? It's a crazy, crazy amount, though. Just the one TikTok. Let me ask, how's YouTube doing? Because I need to also check YouTube. YouTube is slow as always. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh no. Oh no, wait. Oh no. It's not as bad, but it's still not good. 78. Oh heck. Okay, well, Instagram's gotta be less, right? Okay, thank God. Luckily, Instagram is always less. There's only 2 comments on Instagram. 3 comments? Wait. Yes. Okay. Good morning, Pretty Lean. What's up? I got distracted. Thank you for the check-in, Misty, by the way. I have to do Insta. I have to keep all 3 platforms active. All 4. Same as everywhere else. LuckyJene VT. Honestly, though, I might just not. It doesn't really give me much anything. I'll try it for a month. Keep posting there. If it has no traction, then that's going to be the end of that one. There are some people who only use Insta, though. Just not my kind of application. It's too social media all about posting instead of, talking. Cages are lovely. Yeah. Wait, what is going on here? Wait, what were you doing? What were we talking about? I will not use Blue Sky. Blue Sky will be the one platform I do not use. I do not like Blue Sky because Blue Sky is a heavily a popularity contest. And people will so easily wind up like doing witch hunts on Blue Sky. I had one friend who said they were excited for a game that they really wanted to play and that they were looking forward to it. And somebody came after them and was all like, "Oh, did you know this game uses AI? You should have done deeper research on it." And then they sent all their friends to go bash my friend. It's just like, really? Like, you could have been like, "Hey, this game is AI." That's it. That's all I could have needed to say. Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk about AI, though. We will not talk about AI further than that. The story sounds familiar, though, does it? Mm-mm. Yeah, exactly. Time zones are we in? I'm in MST. We're in jail. There was no monkey bars. You're secretly AI. I do believe that. MST is the superior time zone, actually, because we have mountains. I mean, what are you? I'm Eastern time zone. I'm on the east. We have mountains. Mountain standard time. The mountains will always win. Could be strong, could be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's the Blue Ridge Mountains. Blue Ridge Mountain. Country road, take me home to the place where I belong, West Virginia. Mama, take me home, country roads. Mm-mm-mm. Dara, hydrate. Dara, have you been drinking water yourself? Gotta be drinking water, Dara. Mm-mm-mm. Yum. You all should be drinking water. It's very important for you. It's good for you. It's healthy. Drink water, drink water, drink water. Not another tea. Water. Come on. I believe in you. You got this. Definitely not Celsius. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Every drink's Bailey's from a shoe. Every drink I have. Yeah, 100% of people who drink anything. 100% of people who drink anything will die and eat anything. So honestly, you should just not be. Hello, Mortisu. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, you lovely, lovely people. How are you all doing today? Oh, you won. Hello, Mort. Yes, you're right. I think we do need to take them to the basement. Hello, lovely, lovely raiders. Give me 1 second while I get a nicer space. Hi. Good morning. How was the stream? Did you have a good time? So I don't know if you all know this, but, trying to hit partner, you have to hit an average of 70 viewers, and I found there's a very easy way to make sure that people stay around all the time, I don't know if you may have figured this one out yet, but, well, I found out doing this helps a lot. Welcome. You'll be stuck here for a while. But that was stream. What were you doing? Did we already get a shout out for them? Thank you. I appreciate it. Don't worry though. We will make sure to feed you a little bit. Maybe. If you behave. Yes. Let me go take a look. I'm gonna go. Oh, art sounds like so much fun. We're just hanging out and chatting right now. Keeping the vibes nice and relaxed. And there we go. Let me make sure I follow. I do truly appreciate it. What were we talking about? My brain has completely slipped away into the void. There's nothing left in my head, just little echoing noises. Oh, and if you need to raid and run, feel free to do so. Take care of yourself, shower, eat food, relax, vibe. And stop setting things on fire, lovelies. My little voidlings. You need to be careful. We have guests, you're gonna set them on fire too. I think I'd like to read. That's what I'm going to do. Let's read some Edgar Allan Poe. No fire. Perfect. I do love me some Edgar Allan Poe. Mordasu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Do you have a poem that you enjoy? Or anything you'd like me to read? We'll start with this one. A dream within a dream. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You're not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream, yet if hope has flown away in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep. Oh God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? Oh God, can I not save them, one from the pitiless wave? Is all that what we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Bet, we'll do the Raven. Let's do the Raven. It is one of my favorites, though it is a little long. If I can find it. There it is. Thank you for the follow. Layla B. Welcome to the menagerie. And you as well, Alyssa. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. The bonks, really. Welcome all to the menagerie. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, faintly I had sought to borrow from my books a case of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. Hello, songbird. Good morning, vixen. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly, your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. "Thank you for the stretch." This I whispered, and echoed, murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, a wind with many a flit and flutter. In this stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obseisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. My mom used to read me a Gumpo for bed, and I'm an adult waking up hungover. It is funny how life is. Then this ebony bird beguiling my set fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the continents at war. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear his discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. Thank you for the hydrate, 1 second, and thank you for that, Pats. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather that he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by a reply so aptly spoken, doubtless said I, what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore. Sorry. Of the nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gone ominous bird of yore, meant in croaking, nevermore. Then I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes not burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushioned velvet lining that the lamplight loaded o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight loaded o'er, she shall pass, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from unseen censers, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by the angels he has sent thee, respite in Nephathin from memories of Lenore. Quaff, this kind Nephathin, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, whether tempest sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted. Tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, within thy distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word or sign in parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as token of that lie thy soul has spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take the beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. And there you go. I like it. Mm-hmm. It's the raven. To tell you the story of the raven, a person in their room reading old books is reminded, oh, he has a start in the night. He thinks there's somebody coming to visit him, but it turns out to be a raven. And the raven says but one word, nevermore. And in the birds speaking, he reflects on his life. First, how all of his friends have left him, how the love of his life has died, And so in jest he asked the raven if his love is with God. But knowing it will say nevermore, it says that, of course. Instead, he continues begging, please tell him that his love is at rest and safe. But of course it says, nevermore. And believing now that this raven is a demon sent to torment him, he panics, freaks out, tries to get the raven to leave. And it is implied that he possibly dies from self-started horrors and lies beneath the raven, a harbinger of death. Because as it says at the end, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Or he continues living, but in depression. Mm-hmm. It was the raven, Edgar Allan Poe. He was a sad man. Had a lot taken from him, and a lot he did himself. A sonnet to science. He didn't die from rabies. He died from alcoholism, or actually we don't know what he died from. We do know that he died on the vote of for women's rights. And he was last seen being wheeled around drunk around the entire town, and then was found dead on the side of the street. It is believed that he, like many, were forced to drink and vote. Dinosaurs. Sonnet to Science by Edgar Allan Poe. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes. Why preyest thou thus upon this poet's heart, vulture whose wings are dull realities? How should he love thee, or how deem thee wise, who wouldst not leave him in his wandering, to seek for treasures in the jeweled skies, a belty sword with an undaunted wing? Hast thou not dragged Diana from her car, and driven Hammerhead from the wood, to seek shelter in some happy star? Hast thou not torn Naiad from her flood, the elfin from the green grass, and from me the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree? Oh, good morning, Ghost Siren. That's... I like that poem, The Sonnet to Science. Him talking about being sad, the science takes away all fantasy. He may have had tuberculosis at the time, but he was definitely found drunk on the side of the street. Yes, here's what the actual official report is. Edgar Allan Poe's official cause of death was recorded as congestion of the brain, or varentus, a vague, outdated term that does not offer explanation because no autopsy was performed, and no death certificate survives. The true cause of his death at age 40 remains a mystery, leading to numerous theories including alcohol, disease, murder, or even a practice called co-oping. And it is believed that he was kidnapped. The circumstance is mysterious, but Poe was on his way to visit friends in Richmond, but disappeared for several days in late September or early October. He was found October 3rd in Baltimore in a state of distress, wearing ill-fitting clothing and delirious. He was taken to Washington University Hospital, where he died on October 7th. His condition was so grave that the attending physician, Dr. John Moreau, couldn't determine the cause. and it was suggested that he's suffering alcohol poisoning, though some reports suggest he had taken a pledge of temperance, so he drank very little. Some believe he had rabies as a symptom of the disease's delirium, though there is no evidence of a bite or hydrophobia. And he was found at a tavern that had been used as a polling place. Which I believe is the most likely. Sakura VT, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome, welcome. And it would make the most sense, because a person who'd recently taken a plunge of, temperance, being found outside of a tavern makes no sense. And why would he be in Baltimore voting when he was supposed to be going to Richmond? Thank you for the follow, Arby. I will say this. A lot of teachers are taught interesting facts and teach them consistently without ever updating. I know plenty of teachers who can teach their classes with little change, and they've mastered their art, but that can lead to them not updating at all. I'm not saying most teachers do this, but enough do that you run into that too often. You and your need to bonk me. Why am I getting bonked so much this morning? And social anxiety does suck. I don't know. You may have heard it on TikTok. Possibly. Thank you for the follow. What you gaming? I'm just talking about Ergo and Poe today. Oh shoot, I'm supposed to be at work. Alright, lovelies, we're gonna raid out. I think Aribu's on right now. Oh no, she's up. I'll raid Arabu today. But it was a lovely stream. I enjoyed hanging out with all of you. So go say hi for me. Be kind. Be sweet. And I will see y'all later. Bye, Beamy. And bye, everybody. Oh, I'll have to read about it. And there we go. Please copy the raid message. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now. Sorry for